Okay, good morning, everybody. It is early Sunday morning, the 17th, for me here in the beautiful state of Arkansas. And this will be available at midnight, Sunday night, first thing Monday morning. I encourage everybody to get into the classroom and into the discussion early. This week, we had a really good discussion in week one. I was really impressed. I have not um, graded any of the practice papers yet. I appreciate those of you that took the opportunity to turn in a paper and get some feedback. I'll try and jump on those today, Sunday, and tomorrow, and get you some substantive but timely feedback. We've just got another discussion board this week, so you've all seen your feedback from the week one discussion. There were some great posts, good analysis of the articles, good understanding of the articles. But there were also some posts that showed that folks just didn't take the time to read the article or understand it at all. And it takes time. This PhD thing just does not come easily. If it were easy, we'd all be walking around with doctor on our business cards, and that's just not the case. It takes time, and it takes effort to be credible. Everything you do in class, the discussion boards, the papers that you write, you should write as if they were going to be posted publicly for all to see, because that's the way it works in reality. When you do your dissertation, your name's on there, your faculty members are on there. If you move into post dissertation writing and research, your writing will be peer reviewed and scrutinized for accuracy, clarity, repeatability, all of those things. So yeah, use the opportunity here in class, and make sure you're turning in something that is rigorous. It's strong. You have your act together, and that your information is accurate, and that you have a grasp of the topic, and that you can present your work to your classmates, your colleagues, with confidence. Don't just throw stuff out there and hope I don't read it. I see a lot of stuff that's like that. I can tell you don't know what you're doing, and you hope I'm not reading it, which is no pathway to success. So on to this week's discussion. I'm not in healthcare analytics. Um, I've been a software developer, database developer. I run a full stack coding boot camp now. A lot of higher level management positions in enterprise information systems, information management, those sorts of things. But I am not a healthcare data analyst or big data analyst by any stretch. But it's a fascinating topic, and in a couple of courses that I do teach, I've been able to keep up on some of the topics. It's fascinating. This week's discussion is addressing the challenges of big data as it pertains to healthcare analytics. As we all know, big data, these huge volumes of data, distributed across something like a Hadoop file system that crunches the same question among multiple terabytes of data in a distributed fashion. These can work miracles almost, but there are lots of challenges, and I've posted a few articles that discuss those. So this week, that's what the main topic and exercise will be, is discussing the the challenges we face to realize the promise of big data analysis in healthcare. And then I'm going to pop over. I got about more than usual. I got about 10 tabs open in Chrome, looking at coronavirus data. And there's just some points I wanted to make just about data analysis in general, um, data science in general. All right, we'll move on. Oh, there you go. I've already pretty much done my overview. We'll talk I got one slide on this. I want to talk about the foundations of the dissertation, and I'll post some materials about it that I've used in previous classes. I just read my end of course review from previous class, and the support I give in writing and moving towards your dissertation was well received. So I hope you are also appreciative of getting you ready for your dissertation. During your coursework here, it can be easy to think that this degree is just like another master's degree where you just, you survive your coursework, you get, a passing grade each term, and then before you know it, you've endured the program long enough that you get the degree. But the PhD is not like that. The dissertation requirement is ominous. So understanding the basis of what you're doing and your research project, and choosing your research project and defining it and doing your literature review and all of those things that you have to do in your 120 page dissertation. Um, it's never too early to get started thinking about that sort of stuff. So make sure I cover all of that in my 1 hour lecture. I know you probably would love it if I did a 10-minute lecture, but the university wants me to keep it closer to an hour. Okay, so healthcare analytics. This is just in general before we talk about the challenges and whatnot. I've been teaching courses for a few years that have brought in the topic of healthcare and healthcare informatics and the data that can be mined out of electronic health records, compared to midway through the last century, whatever, 30 years ago, maybe even less than that. Gathering healthcare data was arduous because everything was just written down on paper. Everything was written down on paper. Your diagnosis, the questionnaire of your symptoms, and your whether or not you've ever had this disease or that disease, or if you are a cancer survivor, or all of those questions that they ask you when you go to the doctor's office are on paper. A lot of it still is. I'm dismayed sometimes at the amount of data I provide on paper, and even if it is eventually transcribed, there's always a possibility for transcription errors. So, electronic health records, I think, was one of the to me the key initiatives, and we're still really taking baby steps, especially if you think globally, teeny tiny baby steps towards electronic health records that are standardized, and there's data checking to make sure that everything is complete and accurate, and shareable. So electronic health records. Once it's digital, if it goes in digital, that takes away a step from like a medical transcriptionist typing in information or transcribing information from a questionnaire form, or from a lab result, anything like that. Once it gets combined into a structured, mature repository like EHR, then you can have a standard for data exchange where EHRs moving towards where we measure everything in the same unit. There's similar units of measure and data types and data elements. And that allows you to share information. Once you get that data flowing, then you can turn that data into information between practitioners, between hospital systems, between countries. So that's EHR kind of documents. EHR documents the past, really, which is good. You can do some level of um, retrospective and predictive data analysis with that, with all those records, assuming they're accurate and complete, and all of the which we'll talk about in the challenges section. But one thing I'm kind of interested in that I'm not really seeing, and this watching the news during this pandemic is kind of highlighted. We see in you know most of the world, folks laying in hospitals attached to patient monitoring systems. And those patient monitoring systems are providing real time, you know, cardiovascular information. And again, I am a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. Um, so there are many factors. Most of it's cardiopulmonary effectiveness, blood oxygen level, heart rate, respiration. But there's a lot of temperature. There are many things that real-time patient monitoring systems can monitor. Historically, we use those for telemedicine. Most of the applications that I see of real-time patient monitoring is so that you can keep track of someone remotely while they're at home through internet-connected, Internet of Things, wearable sensors, and even if it's not real time, you can download. Like my mother-in-law wears a pacemaker that has a sensor she puts over it, and it sends the information to her cardiologist, and that's not necessarily real time, but it is remote patient monitoring. But this is mostly used so that you don't have to go into the hospital, or you don't have to stay in the hospital while you're being monitored, but it provides the same level of data collection and the same level of monitoring. Whereas if something started going wrong with cardiac arrhythmia or whatever, they could potentially respond with an ambulance call. But I was just thinking, if you could link all of these people together that are in the hospital with COVID-19, and you could provide patient demographics and lab work as it becomes available, and patient history. So you'd have their age and their sex and previous illnesses and pre-existing conditions, whether they were heart patients or if they had diabetes. You if you could share all of this information in real time, whether or not they had been given a drug trial. We've been trying a lot of different approaches for treatments that may and may not show a response. So I'm just wondering, what a great big data project that would be, because there's a real time component in big data analysis where um, you you can adapt those volumes of information coming in from thousands upon thousands of patients across the world, um, and see what is happening in real time. You could see the effectiveness of certain therapies. You could see the patients getting better, their blood oxygen level getting better, whether or not they're intubated. Um, would would be shown globally. I'm just thinking if in a perfect world, if you could monitor all the data that we can collect from folks in hospitals, um, I just think it would be a very interesting big data, and we will get there eventually at some point, where that sort of real time data is being shared in a giant network, especially a reaction to a pandemic like this. I think COVID-19 hit at a time in history when we have the capability of truly changing the way we look at things. We've all seen contact tracing using our smartphones. I apologize. I'm still having a cup of coffee. Yeah, contact tracing with smartphones, and who was in what country, when, and where, and that we're getting to be where we can you can put all that data together into a big data project and truly get some answers. I'm really expecting some fairly major changes in healthcare research and public policy. But we'll see. Time will tell. But healthcare analytics brings and its underlying data brings in privacy concerns, which has been documented thoroughly. Again, remember, I use Google Scholar as my first source. I don't use the university library first because I've got 3 university subscriptions, and they all have different databases that they subscribe to. I like Google Scholar. It seems to be the keyword searching seems to be smarter, and it comes with an easy citation tool. You can download the citation to your bibliographic software, and if the article is something you want to keep, you can often download the full source, full text version. So I'm a big Google Scholar fan. But if you look, privacy concerns in healthcare data have been documented thoroughly. Some of you are in this line of work, and you know all about HIPAA and compartmentalizing information and the security of it. And uh, yeah, big. I have a colleague who accidentally accessed patient records. He was a hospital administrator, not a provider, and he thought he was helping with something, and he accessed patient data in the performance of his duties. But HIPAA is so tight that he was basically given the option to resign. Yeah, I've never worked in that world, and I got to tell you, it's a little intimidating. Um, um, the chance, to have your employment terminated because you were trying to do the right thing, but you did it the wrong way. That's a big concern. So, and then a lot of folks have we've seen in the popular press um, concerns with the ethical use of healthcare analytic data, and that's by both uh, um, genetic predisposition and I would say and I didn't put it here on the slide, but lifestyle choices. Whether or not you were ever a smoker or used a vape pen, if that gets documented in your EHR and then gets held against you later, is that ethical? Um, uh, Apparently, insurance companies are looking at these sorts of things and deciding how much you're going to pay for life insurance and health insurance. Some companies are apparently willing to look at your health history and make hiring decisions based on pre-existing conditions and potentially chronic health issues. Do you have a right to keep that private, um, or not? Or is it all of our right to know who amongst us is whatever HIV positive or COVID positive, or you know what I mean? So there's a lot of ethical debate between the rights of the individual and the rights of the greater society, or the need of the greater society. So lots of challenges there. So yeah, healthcare analytics and big data. We've got 3 articles here. I'll go into those a little bit more in depth um, when we talk about the discussion question. But I want to pop out of this, stop that share, and share my Chrome. Probably ought to share my whole screen and go to out of slideshow mode. Come on now, get out of slideshow mode. There we go. Go to Chrome. I wanted to just look at some of these stats. One thing is a website you might enjoy if you haven't been to it before. It's ourworldindata.org, and it shows some fundamental data visualization, and of course the topic du jour is coronavirus. So you can filter this data set, much like you would maybe like a Tableau or a Power BI display. You can look at, let's see, this is total cases per capita. So I checked per capita because the raw numbers don't tell the tale. But like the U.S. per capita is way up here, especially compared to some other industrial nations like South Korea, Australia. Um, so anyway, and then if you look at like the number of this is tests, yeah. If you look at confirmed cases, um, you know, per capita again, U.S. is really high, and then down here you've got India way down at the bottom, South Korea and Australia, um, fewer confirmed cases, and they're being touted now. Their response is being touted. But this is the data. But what I think would be interesting is just peeling the onion, as it's called. If you're exploring and a data scientist, you're asking further questions. Okay, well, this is the data shows this to be a fact. Then you have to look at other factors, causation. So is South Korea so low because of the way they responded? Is it cultural? Is it their age demographic? Italy has a very old average age, and they were decimated. So there's all these different factors that could relate, correlate, as we know from statistics. They could correlate, but they don't necessarily show causation. So you really got to dig deep and do some analysis on this sort of stuff. But I thought you guys might enjoy this. Um, our world in data, and then there's also caveats to the data. I'll go back to the number of tests. That seems to be where the data gets the dirtiest, where you can't like Spain's got tests performed. Australia, the units of the test are unclear. Um, um, the U.S. has inconsistent units, and they list the actual project where they're getting their data. But then look down here, the note. It explains the data and the limitations of the data. And any research project that you write up will have a limitations section, including your dissertation. You as a researcher, you have to be open and honest and transparent about the limitations of your study. So for this being just a, not necessarily a study, but more just a visualization of the data that exists as we know it. There are substantial differences across countries in terms of the units, whether or not all the labs are included, the extent to which negative and pending tests are included, and other aspects. Um, Details for each country can be found further, so you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper into the data. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting exercise. And then there was another tab or two. Oh yeah, the CDC. So if you're um, uh, getting data, from the reliable source, that's the other things. Try not to, you can conduct all of this yourself. They will often give you the data set. But this visualization just shows the rate of hospitalization by age. And we've known that way back. The average age of a corona fatality in a study they did in, I think it was 30,000 fatalities in Italy back in March. The average age was 79 years and some months. Average age of the deceased, 79 years. So you could just, do the math. But it was really, really decimating for older populations. So no, I mean, just surfing around in the world of data, you can find data sets that you could pop into your favorite software, whether it's visualization or R or Python. Just start kind of goofing around with the data. If you're not in that world, it's a great big growth career field. Okay, well, I'll go back to the slides now. We'll talk about this week's. There's 3 articles in the discussions. So sharing my screen still. I'll put it back in slideshow. Okay, so this week's discussion, pretty straightforward. There's 3 articles in there. One of them is particularly aligned with these 4 categories. They basically created these categories in that first article that's listed in your resources for the week 3 resources. But you'll see in many big data projects, these are all similar. So if you want to, maybe if you're reading about a big data project that shows an example of one of these 4 or more categories of challenges, please, you're welcome to share that. But use a header so that we see in your discussion the challenges in data gathering, and then tell us what you saw about that. But try and go beyond. I mean, we're all reading the same 3 articles, guys. So if you just regurgitate what we've got in this article, it's not a very substantive discussion. So I'm hoping you're going outside of class and taking some time and actually digesting this material. I sent an email to one of you. Hopefully, we'll get an example of a Hadoop project and how that exactly works. I've never worked with Hadoop. Only read about it and seen some videos on YouTube and whatnot. But yeah, a true big data project. Although I've got a colleague that works in a ecological data provider company. He's an R user expert. Going to try and interview him for this course to talk about R and data cleansing and data analysis. I like Python better. I don't know. I've been using the Anaconda distribution and a Jupyter notebook, and Jupyter notebook is just so easy to document and code in, compared to a lot of other software development environments. I just think it's pretty slick. But anyway, so here's these 4 categories. There's the challenge of gathering the data, and they go into several different. There's 2 articles about challenges, and one that's kind of more of a background, really more of just a straight uh, informational background article. Um, but the challenge of gathering data is large. Uh, just getting access to it, getting permission to use it, getting it in the right, the next bullet, getting it into some place where you can access it, utilize it, and integrate it. Which you've got to get fields into the same format, get things linked up. A lot of different systems store things differently. Can be maddening from just an enterprise information systems point of view when you've got uh, a bunch of different systems that store similar data but not quite the same, and you've got to massage the keys to link the data up, and what a pain. But anyway, they go into that in the articles. And then the next category is analyzing that data, and those challenges can come from in the form of the volume of the data, the questions being asked. What do you want to know? Does the data cover you know the question being asked? And then moving the fourth category is really more about uh, drawing conclusions and answering questions, like I talked about, digging deeper and deeper, peeling the layers of the onion, to get to, no kidding, something that you've learned something new. um, so yeah, that's it. This week's discussion, fairly straightforward, but it at least gets you into the world of big data, particularly as it pertains to healthcare. So again, please use a header for each category. The header being those four categories up there. Just make it easy so that we can all see that you are addressing data gathering, and then in the next section you are addressing storage and integration, and so on. Please feel free to use articles, and I say two, but I threw a third one in there. Um, uh, Feel free to use articles beyond the ones I provided, but avoid the temptation to just throw in a citation so that you look like you're writing in an academic format. If you're going to cite something, make sure that that article has one of its big deals, one of its bottom lines, one of its main points is the reason you're citing it. Some folks are citing articles that just happen to have one of the words involved, and the article's got nothing to do with what you said. Nothing. Try and avoid that temptation, okay, folks? Um, don't just throw citations in there to try and satisfy the course. As I said at the beginning of the lecture, everything you post in class discussion, every paper you turn in, you need to think about if it got turned into the world, and everybody could scrutinize it. And then maybe, put the amount of work into it so that you're proud of it. It's not just something you hope. Oh, I hope so. I'm out of time and I don't have, and I'm going to throw something out there. I'm seeing that. I consistently see that. And at the PhD level, it's kind of embarrassing, really. I mean, it's embarrassing. So, and when you respond to your coworkers, when you respond to your classmates, please, I marked some of you down and put it in your feedback. Don't add a few points. None of us need you to add a few points and then summarize something you read in the article. Be conversational. You see my reaction to the first week's discussion. You see other people's reaction. The people that actually talked in first person about what they learned in an article, what they read, what they thought, what they saw, asked questions of each other, real questions, not just a question to fill in, just to check the block there. I asked you a question. But you could tell people that really read each other's posts and gave it some thought and were actually discussing things and being real about it. And then you can see the students that are just posting something out there to just be done, to just hopefully they'll get a good grade. Well, it's not going to get a good grade. Okay. Some of you, quite a few of you got 25 out of 25, excellent marks on the first week's discussion. And some of you got, single digits. And I would bet that all of you could go through the discussion board and pick out the ones that got a good grade and the ones that did not, based on the quality of the assessment. Some of you weren't even looking at the right 3F. You didn't even read the 3Fs of that article. Guys, it takes more time than that. You can't just glance at something and go find something else that has a similar acronym. You've got to have understanding of what you're reading to get all the way through the dissertation process. So you might as well start practicing here and now, and actually, no kidding, understand what you're talking about. If you feel like you don't understand what you're talking about, shoot me an email. I didn't get any questions last week, not one. I check my email twice a day, no questions. So I can't help you if you don't lean on me, and I'm here. That's what I'm here for. So if you have questions regarding terminology, if there's this, if you want help with phrasing, let me know. I'm here to help. And so please don't lecture each other. That's what I'm talking about. I just want to add a few points. Your post was very good. I want to add a few points, and then you tell them something about the subject. Like anybody's an expert in that 3F. In week one, that article, they proposed that methodology. It's never been used by anyone else. Some of you said it's been used in many fields across the world, and no, it hasn't. That 3F methodology that article proposed doesn't exist anywhere outside of that article. Not that I could find. If you found it, you didn't cite it. Some of you cited the wrong 3F because you didn't really give it the time. I'm sure it's not a matter of a lack of talent. It's a lack of time if you didn't get the grade that you wanted. So I really look forward to helping you guys move forward in that direction. I know some faculty members, they don't read your assignments. You get an A or a B, and you just tra-la-la through the program, and you're happy as you can be, and you're not learning a thing. I understand some of you have had faculty members like that in the past, but I'm not that guy. So I do everything I can to scrutinize. I read your work before I comment on it. And words count. If I can't understand your train of thought, something's wrong. You need to work on being more clear, and not trying to sound smart. And I did see article spinner, either students in this class using an article spinner or downloading content that I know came from an article spinner. So avoid that temptation, guys. You get out of this what you put into it. And I don't just pass people just because they paid their tuition. There's a much deeper relationship and arrangement between students and a university. At least that's what I thought when I was a PhD student. I felt obligated to turn in quality work so that my classmates' time was not wasted. Because that's a large component of this learning experience in any university setting. It is the interaction with your fellow students. All right, guys, I will quit lecturing for now. In conclusion, I mean, one of the charts I pulled up, I think it's in I'm pretty sure it's in one of the articles that are in your week 3 resources, shows the number of publications that address big data and healthcare. And look at right around 2010, 2011, in the last 10 years, the number of publications that address big data and healthcare analytics went from, I don't know, single digits to like 300 publications. So this is a growth career field. It's, we all want good health. We all want good health for ourselves, our families, our friends. We want our practitioners to have the best information, best quality information available, and they need, high quality data scientists that know how to, cleanse, assemble, and analyze and report the results of data, helping them out. So that's what you're all here for. Definitely a growth career field, and a absolutely critical part of life on Earth. So um, while it offers uh, the promise of better treatment, faster cures, better prevention, um, challenges persist in that data analysis, and we'll talk about those this week. And I look forward to seeing your insights on a data, especially those of you who are in the data world. Some of you are software developers and like me, and this is kind of a strange world for you. You might have to do a little extra work if you're not currently working as a data analyst or data scientist. But that happens. Some courses will be made for you and be slightly easier for you, and some courses will be tougher. So like I said at the beginning, I wanted to talk, that's the week's course material, but I wanted to talk a little bit about your dissertations. I want to throw out a 0 point discussion about where you're at in your dissertation, um, and in choosing a research project and the foundations of your dissertation. So I'll start a discussion post and I'll attach some resources that talk about that. If you're already on your way and you already have a good problem area described and a research question, an executable research question that faculty members have said, yeah, that's good, and you've already started looking for gaps in the literature, you're doing your literature review. If all of that is you got a firm handle on it, then good for you. You should be able to contribute to this discussion. But I'm seeing in coursework, and this is the first time I've facilitated ITS 836. I've been doing 832, IT in a global economy. And even people in their second and third semesters aren't really thinking about their dissertation yet. They're still concentrating on coursework. And the point I would make to you is that the sooner you know the problem area and the purpose of your research. Beg your pardon. Oh, excuse me. The sooner you know your research area and what you're going to be working on, you can sort of tailor your assignments toward your dissertation, and you can work with your instructors so that maybe you can modify the instructions slightly and take a different tack with your assignments. I was able to do that for a good proportion of my assignments in my program, because I decided on a subject fairly early for my dissertation, which is published on ProQuest, by the way. Big deal, right? Every dissertation is published on ProQuest. Yeah, I'll put a discussion out there this week, and I'll call it dissertation foundation or something like that. And I hope you take advantage of it. And if you'd like help based on your background, narrowing in on a problem area and getting started with a literature review and deciding on a research question, I'd be certainly glad to help you. We can even meet up real time and hit Google Scholar and start looking for gaps in the research. I'll go into more depth on different parts of the dissertation, but it's all going to have to be for either part of the residency weekend, if I can work it into your residency weekend grade, or it's going to have to be extra credit because the university standard syllabus for this course already has your papers and your discussions locked in, and I'll modify the wording a little bit of those, but generally speaking, I need to stick with so that all the sections in there, I don't know, 10 or so sections of this class going on at the same time, that you all have a fairly consistent experience, so they don't want us professors to go off and just create a completely new course. So yeah, be looking for that in addition to the graded discussion, which will be about uh, big data and healthcare analytics and the challenges presented. You'll also see a non-credit discussion on getting started with your dissertation and where you're at with your dissertation, and what can I do to help you and your fellow students to get rolling on it, particularly if you haven't done anything, or refine things if you have made some progress. Okay, that's all I have for you this week. I look forward to your analysis of those big data articles, and make sure you understand those big data articles are literature reviews. They just went out and polled the literature and reviewed it to show you the the state of challenges and opportunities in big data. There was no big data research conducted. Okay, so make sure you understand that when if I see somebody in the discussion and they start talking about the big data project that came to whatever conclusions, that they're talking about a different article. These were purely structured literature reviews. So make sure you keep that in mind. Now, if you want to use an actual big data project in class discussion that highlights one of the challenges that they showed, that's great. That's great. So cool, man. I look forward to seeing you guys in class this week, and have a good week, everybody.